Moving here to France, where we haven't had a government since July, but that may finally be changing. Prime Minister Michel Barnier has submitted his proposed cabinet to President Emmanuel Macron, and confirmation is expected this weekend. Now, the full list of 38 names hasn't been made public, but both the left wing and the far right are already mad about it. Laurent Berstecker looks at some of the new faces being proposed.
After 2 months of political deadlock, France could be edging towards a new government. Prime Minister Michel Barnier submitted his list for a new cabinet to Emmanuel Macron on Thursday, with some names already filtering through. These include Conservative Senate leader Bruno Retailleau, touted for the Interior Ministry, a nomination that would mark a shift to the right, but not enough to satisfy the far-right National Rally.
Between him and his predecessor, Mr. Darmanin, there's not much difference. They're the same. They have the same political affiliation and ideas, the same failures as well.
France has been unable to form a government since July snap elections saw a left-wing coalition win the largest number of seats in parliament. But without a working majority and plagued by internal disputes, the left has been unable to build on these electoral gains. Last month, Macron rejected its pick for prime minister, nominating former Brexit negotiator Michel Barnier instead. A move widely criticized by socialist MPs, yet some remained quietly hopeful the new cabinet would reflect the will of the French people expressed in the July polls.
We don't have a choice but to stay optimistic, and we can only hope that, of all of the cabinets we've seen under Mr. Macron, the last one will be the best.
Other possible nominations include centrist Jean-Noël Barrot for foreign minister and Sébastien Lecornu staying on as defense minister. The full makeup of the new cabinet should be unveiled by Sunday.
For some analysis of this story, we welcome Renaud Foucart to the program. He is an economist and a senior lecturer at Lancaster University. Thanks so much for being with us here on France 24 today. Now, our viewers may recall that it was a left-wing coalition that earned the most seats in Parliament back in the July snap election, so not a majority. However, Barnier's proposed cabinet seems to tilt further to the right than the previous more centrist government. So how is Macron justifying this based on what voters decided?
So the truth of the second round of the election of July the 7th is that it was neither the left or the center who won the election, it was a Republican front. The left-wing candidate withdrew candidates to help centrists be elected, centrists withdrew candidates to see left-wing people being elected. And in the end, they were the people who had the legitimacy together, the center and the left, to form a government. In practice, it became impossible. So on the left, they would say it's because Macron refused to nominate Lucie Castet, who was the prime minister advanced by the left. Emmanuel Macron and people around him would say that the left refused to compromise. But as a matter of fact, the only majority that became available was this strange majority at the moment in which it will be a right-wing prime minister. And despite all the pantomime of saying, oh, this is not a true right-wing government, this is a government that can only exist with the implicit support of Marine Le Pen and the far right. So this is indeed not the result of the election. The blame game, the jury is still out.
So now that the cabinet has been proposed, what's the opposition saying? And is there anything that they could do to try to stop this government?
The left-wing opposition, at the moment, they cannot do anything. The only thing they can hope for is that at some point, Marine Le Pen decides to pull the plug on the government. So Le Pen has said, we will not vote against the government as a matter of principle at the beginning, but we reserve the possibility of doing so. She is in an incredibly comfortable position now. She can complain as much as she wants when there will be budget cuts and things like that. But she will wait for the moment when it's the most promising, the most useful for her politically to pull the plug. And then maybe, if it happens in a year, there will be another chance to form something with the left. But in the meantime, the left is completely out of the game. They can only do what French politicians like to do the most, which is to get ready for the next presidential election. And in that sense, it's a bit of a victory for some of them, because they will remain sort of pure. They will not be accountable for the coming tax raise and budget cuts.
Right. Well, that brings me to my next question because, well, we know some of the names that Barnier has proposed. There doesn't appear to be any big political names in the mix, like Gérald Darmanin, for example. And so you mentioned the upcoming presidential election. Is that why you think that these bigger names aren't included, or are there other reasons as well?
Well, definitely the front runner for the traditional right, Les Républicains, Laurent Wauquiez, was offered to be Minister of Finance. Of course, it's a super prestigious job. But I guess in his mind, he thought, no, the only job someone from the right would like to do right now is interior. Because interior, I can take a picture with policemen, I can show I'm tough on crime, tough on migration. This will maybe help me with voters. At the moment, all the other jobs are jobs of austerity. France, the main challenge of France right now is to go back in an horizon of 3 to 5 years below 3% of GDP of deficit. This is a very tough job. This might include new tax, budget cut for sure, and I don't think anyone wants to be the face of austerity, except perhaps for somebody like Michel Barnier, who is an old man without too much agenda for his political future, and who has this reputation in Europe of being someone who can make deals.
A lot of political calculations going on here. So finally, I want to ask you, while we're watching the clock, waiting for news to come down about the confirmation, do we know what the holdup is, what we're waiting to happen?
What we're waiting to happen? Well, at the moment, there is one thing that was added by François Hollande in his previous presidency, which is a moment of background checks on ministers. This happened because in the past, some ministers were found to have some big financial or fiscal problems. So that's one of the reasons. And I think there is also another reason, which is, again, this political game, like who in the centrist is really willing to go and put their name in the hat. From what I hear, there are some people around the Modem and Horizon, which is the party of Edouard Philippe, who is another presidential hopeful, who are still waiting to see. Because in the end, the big surprise of the week was that Michel Barnier, according to some polls, is the most popular political figure in France at the moment. So it's not impossible that actually people like him. And in that case, a lot of people will regret not joining the boat right now.
Economist Renaud Foucart, thank you so much for joining us and breaking down this story in a very clear way. Appreciate it.
Thank you.